What up, what up, what up, what up? It's your boy P. Skip. Welcome to the best half hour of your entire Tuesday. You know what time it is. It's time to get into his course. My squad with me, T-Mac.
Hola.
Chili Will.
Gracias, amigo.
Let's do this. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 2 through 8. And then I'm going to drop down to verse 17. It says this, reading this on the New Living Translation. Saul countered by gathering his Israelite troops near the valley of Elah. So the Philistines and the Israelites faced each other on opposite hills with the valley between them. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out to the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet. His bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. He also wore bronze leg armor, and he carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of his spear was as heavy as and thick as weaver beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. His armor bearer walked ahead of him and carrying his shield. Now here you have Goliath, the giant. And he was not only huge, but he was talking crazy to Israel. It's like, listen, you cats, come on out here and fight me. You don't even have, the rest of your armies don't even have to fight. Just you and I, mano a mano. You send your champion, I'll be my champion. Whoever wins, the other team will quit. So then you have David, a shepherd boy, who goes out, his father sends him out to go feed his brothers who are part of the army and to check on them and see what they have. And David's father, while David is there, he hears Goliath screaming and talking crazy. And David says, wait a minute. Ain't nobody gonna go out there and check this cat? You'll just talk crazy. So I'm paraphrasing. And they're like, nah, you fat mouthing so much, you go out and do it. He said, I ain't got no problem with that. So David goes out. Not only does he go out and fight Goliath, but he says to him, listen, how dare you talk crazy? I'm finna come out there, whoop your tail, and cut your head off. And he did exactly what he said. So I said all that to say, what has been known as Goliath in the NBA has gotten their heads cut off this playoff season this year. And so I'm not going to mention the team, but I'm going to let Will.
Oh, man.
Really, Milwaukee, LA Will.
Oh, man.
Talk about what happened to the team in which I am not mentioning, but he will mention it for himself.
I was just telling somebody you was on my Mount Rushmore of brother-in-laws. Now I got to rethink. Woo, that's a gut check right there, man. Y'all know I'm a huge Laker fan, man. I ain't gonna lie, I've been sick since all this went down. Don't get me wrong, the Lakers before last year, they were irrelevant for a long time. So this is not new pain. This is reoccurring pain. Mm-hmm. But, last year they did very well. They won the championship. And, we thought we was onto something that they could repeat. But injuries and, trading some people and getting some new people in that didn't work the way we wanted it to work. I think the Pau Gasol thing didn't work out properly. I think the Harrell thing didn't work out like we thought it would. And also the point guard.
Schroeder.
Schroeder.
Yeah, Schroeder didn't do what we thought he would do. So we got rid of Rondo. We got rid of JaVale
McGee.
Yeah,
Dwight Howard.
Dwight Howard. Thinking we were upgrading, and come to find out we weren't upgrading. So it's very disappointing. But it is interesting to see some young guns in the NBA. I mean, because Steph Curry is not in the finals. And LeBron James is not in the finals, and that's the first time for us.
This is the first time neither one of them have been there in the last 11 years.
Is it been that long? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So to see the young talent and young guns and the young coaches coming up in the NBA, I think it's refreshing. I think it's time for to pass the javelin on to the next generation. And, LeBron is getting up there. Steph Curry is probably at the prime of his career. So he's getting close to the mountaintop where he's going to be coming down the backside of it. So from that standpoint, it's good for NBA business. But from a fan standpoint, man, I'm sick.
Yeah. The NBA seems like it's a better league when both New York and LA are great.
And you add Boston to that when Boston is good. And Boston was another team that got handled pretty swiftly and easily in the East. So this wasn't a good year for the Giants, for the Davids of the NBA. I mean, the Goliaths of the NBA. It wasn't a good year. It's a very good year for the Davids, though.
Yeah, the other thing is, just to add what you're saying, your boy Magic went online and posted, Schroeder is not a good fit for a Laker. He is not a Laker. He's got to go.
Wow.
Magic said this.
Wow.
That's serious. Go ahead, Tim.
Wow.
I think that was somewhat prompted by the fact that right before this last game, the elimination game the Lakers played in, Dennis Schroeder, on his social media account, his Instagram, he took off the point guard for the LA Lakers before the game. So he had begun to kind of self-destruct, sabotage his time there, before Magic, kind of prompted Magic to say what he said. I think Magic was already fuming because Dennis Schroeder in the previous game had 0 points. And so how are you going to be the starting point guard and you got a donut in the playoffs? That's unacceptable. And we're down an all-star. We need you to come and produce. So he was already underachieving. Then to have the unmitigated gall to almost stick it in the Lakers organization's face to say, hey, I'm not a point guard there anymore. I'm out of here. Magic was saying, okay, you done go ahead and, dug your grave. We're going to put you in it since you want to be gone. Bye. And I think that was some of it. But to echo some of the things that Will said, the changing of the guard has been interesting to see. And I don't necessarily mind that the bigger teams, the bigger markets, the LAs of the world, the New Yorks of the world aren't necessarily there. I mean, the NBA is a player-driven league. And if you have great players, I personally don't give a frog's fat but where they come from or what team they're playing on. I just want to see it. This is must-see TV. So long as you can give me entertaining basketball, you have guys that are doing, excellent execution, great fundamentals, as well as some razzle-dazzle, some pizzazz, some padal. I'm cool. If they play for LA or not, I'm cool. If they play for New York or not, I'm cool. Can you play? Yes or no? Matter of fact, we've been growing up, there's been plenty of times we went to the playground, we've been at, AAU tournaments or wherever. We didn't necessarily care who was playing. We would just say, hey, you see that cat with them that red shirt on? Dude with the red shirt on is cold. Or dude that got on them, them Jordans, dude, is cold. You see my man with them sweats on them? So we never really cared about who you was affiliated with. We looked at you as the player. Can you play or are you a buster? So if you can ball, regardless of market. But I think that for LA and LeBron James, as a personal fan of LeBron, he's my favorite player in the league, even currently. Right now, it's a little disappointing to see his reign of dominance come to an unceremonious end. He's been in the finals, a bunch of years, in a row, or 10 out of the last 11 years without that injury shortened season that he had a couple years ago. And to see his team not give the help that he needs, that was pretty foul to have guys not step up. Caldwell Contavious Pope was doing his thing. Last year really helped them to win that chip. I thought he was going, return to that form as opposed to the previous form that he had before he came out of nowhere as Shazam last year. But he returned to form, kind of bustery. Caruso, who had been playing very, very good and it was an underrated scrapper. He seems to be kind of drunk on the champagne of last year as well. And Kyle Kuzma, who I thought they should have, transitioned out of there a few years ago and kept a Brandon Ingram, but they invested in him, signed him to this big contract. I thought he would really kind of show and prove and say, hey, you guys made the right decision in keeping me. I'm going to begin to live up to my potential and help when it matters most. He's been MIA for the whole playoffs. And so it's interesting to see what LA is going to do. LeBron, as Will said, is getting up there in age, and he's also had some injuries. So I don't know if there's starting to be some chinks in his armor. And as we all know, as you know, former athletes and still fans of sports, Father Time is undefeated, and so he's already showing some wear and tear that might continue to be exacerbated as time goes on. And Anthony Davis, we had really masked your injury prone career up to this point. You had a great year last year and helped Bron get that chip, but now you're looking gimpy again and fragile, like, had been marking your career with the Pelicans prior to coming over to LA. So it's a bunch of question marks. It's a bunch of moving parts for LA. They have some real soul searching to do in this offseason based on who they're going to keep and take another gamble with, or will they clean house because they're ticked off and try and rebuild, that team and put Humpty Dumpty back together again?
Yeah, AD's name, AD should stand for always down, because he's always, and that's been the consistency of his career. He's always down. And so they put money in really a gamble, because they knew he has more of a potential to be down than to be an asset. The same with Embiid, and he's injured over on the East again. So what I love about this year is it's so wide open that anybody, you just don't know who's going to be. There is no clear. They're still trying to say that, now it's definitely the Nets to win. But I don't think, here we go again, me being predicting the guy who said that both Miami and LA was not going to get out of the first round, and nobody believed me. Don't call me Nostradamus or anything. Don't call me a prophet or anything. But, I do think the Bucks are going to, this is the year for the Bucks, because I don't think, one, they fear the Nets not in the least bit.
Mm-mm.
Two, all three of your big players can get 30, and the Bucks can still win because they're averaging 120 a game. Because you don't have enough others to sustain you over the Bucks. And I think the longer this season goes, the longer this series goes, the more wear and tear that the Nets are going to get on them. And where the Bucks are strong is exactly where the Nets are weak, which is in the middle. Giannis loves to play against teams that are just weak in the middle, that when he goes to post, can't nobody stop him. Because if KD's got to hold him, he's having 50 every night down in the middle. It's a wrap. So, and it's going to put KD in foul trouble, and it's going to put wear and tear on his body. And so I'm just looking at the Bucks coming out of the East and the Bucks winning this championship, because the Bucks also do not fear Philly in the least bit. And Philly, again, neither one of these teams match up well with the Bucks. So I'm just looking at the Bucks coming out the East. Speaking of, and let's stay in the NBA. There's been some major shakeups in the NBA coaching ranks and front offices. Boston Celtics. Danny Ainge announces retirement from as president of basketball to give it up to none other than Brad Stevenson has been promoted. So now Boston's looking for a new coach. I wonder what that's going to look like. They've got some young players. They've got some pieces. They definitely need to get rid of Kemba. But they've got some young pieces that could do some things in the East, as well as Terry Stotts and the Portland Trailblazers have come to a mutual agreement that we're going through a divorce. And so they have decided that, hey, we just going to split everything 50-50. You get what you came in with. I'm going to leave what I came with. And so that's major. I knew Terry Stotts was going to be gone after what happened with Portland this year in the playoffs. But I didn't. But I guess Danny Ainge retired because he had health issues last year, a huge health scare. And so he just decided, you know what? I don't want to put this kind of time anymore into basketball. I'd rather put it into my family and my health and making sure I'm good. So I'm here nor there about any of that, but that's what's out there now. Here's another coaching situation that that's rocking, absolutely rocking the NC2As. And I want to say this before I say what's happening there. I said last year when the NBA allowed the top tier players to go to the G League, we're getting ready to see just how good of coaches that these blue blood teams or schools are. And so what happens when these 5 stars didn't go to the North Carolinas, the Dukes, the Kentuckys, none of them did well or didn't make the NC2A tournament. As a result, Roy Williams said, North Carolina's coach, like, yep, I'm retiring. I can't coach this team, this league of players. And now Coach K of Duke says the same thing. I think it's time for me to retire, which tells me they don't necessarily know how to coach 4 and 3 stars. I just know how to position 5 stars to win games for me. That's my thought. I'll turn it over to y'all. What's your thought on them two retiring, and why do you think they retired? Tim, I'll let it go to you first.
I think you hit the nail on the head. There is a beginning of a change that takes place, and I've been of the persuasion also that some of the coaches, particularly those that you mentioned, the blue bloods, have been receiving an inadequate amount of credit for what they've been able to do. Anybody can win if you have the best talent, and I think that transcends sports. You look at Alabama in football. If Alabama has the #1 recruiting class every year, it does not, is not a mystery that they are highly ranked and can win championships every year. If you've got all of the blue chippers, if you've got all of the 5-star talent every year, you don't have to ever rebuild. You just restock and reload every single year. And when you have lesser talent, that then goes to show you how you really can rock some X's and O's. We look at professional sports. Phil Jackson, I'll give him his credit, give him his props. That's cool, but you've coached some of the best players in the history of the game. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaq. So you got 11 championships. Sure, you also have some of the best to ever do it. Could you have been able to do that with lesser talent? That's questionable. Now, the second piece to that is these guys have also been in the coaching ranks for a number of years, maybe 30, 40 years.
Right.
It was time to move on. Whether or not the sea change and the talent is coming there still or not, whether we're in a tectonic shift with regards to cultural and generational shifts, whether or not technology has allowed for folks to be able to build their brand even in high school, so they come to college with cachet and increase their options of whether to go to college at all or not, or go straight to pro. You also have been in the game for 30 years. You've wrung it out for as much as you could. It is time to move around and give somebody else a chance and have some succession. The bigger question will be is that even with them moving on, are we really seeing wholesale changes where from this day forward, all the top players will all bypass college altogether and look at these options that are emerging? The G League piece that you talked about, the NBA, there's also some other emerging leagues that have been announced over the past 6 to 12 months. So there will be options for players to go ahead and get paid to do what they do and not look at college as the only option or the intermediate pit stop on their way to professional basketball, because you got overseas as well. But I don't know if that's still the case, because there's still some rumblings that colleges still offer some sort of attraction, even if it's nothing but, hey, I want to go experience what it's like to be on the campus, to hang out with other kids my age, to kick it, to be the big man on campus. That still has some allure as well. And colleges have done, traditionally a good job of packaging their abilities to be a benefit to the student, both to the student athlete as well as to their parents and family. So you still have this notion that college is the way to go. You got to do the college thing. You got to touch college somewhere, somehow, if you want to be successful. And what happens if your career doesn't pan out, you get injured? What can you, quote unquote, fall back on? So it's still yet to be seen how that big machine is going to be negatively impacted. This might just be a blip on the screen for a season or two and things go back to normal. Or this could be a situation where the cat has been let out of the bag and, you cannot close the gate and regather that joker because it's here now and the world as we knew it is now over.
Well, you just said a mouthful, Tim, and I'm just going to say that first of all, both of those coaches are over 70 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing it over 40 years. Right. So they've been doing this since we were teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
So it is time to change and it is time to move on. And Coach K himself said that the NCAA is a multi-billion-dollar industry that can't be run by committee. And that's how it's run by committee. I think about the NCAA is that it's organized exploitation of workforce, of skilled labor.
Amen.
I think it's the last form of slavery that's left in the United States. I mean, straight up slavery, paid to produce, profits and revenue is made from your production and you don't share in the revenue. That's slavery. And I think it's the last form of it. And I think people are getting tired of it. And I think a lot of the young people, the talented, the 5 stars are saying, you know what? I don't need Duke or North Carolina or Kentucky to make $25, $30 million off me before I go to the NBA. I can make $100,000, $500,000, $1 million off of myself before I go to the NBA because I'm a 5-star player anyway. It don't make no difference what school I go to. I could go to UWM. I'm still going to the NBA. So why would I go and make these blue bloods even more money? The other thing that's going to be interesting about this is that a lot of the people who pledge allegiance to a lot of these schools, they pledge allegiance partially on academics and where the schools are known as far as academically. But a lot of it is based on athletic achievements. So a lot of these schools get to be big time programs and they get to study and be research type programs based on the revenue that's brought in by the exploitation of athletes who are not compensated. And for me, I would be very happy to see this institution fall by the wayside and come correct and be credible and allow that the workforce and the people who are generating the money get to share in the profit of it. And then once again, when you look at it, who is it ran by? White males. That's it. That's who runs it. So it's time for this to be over with, just like some other things, it's time for it to be over with. And I applaud it. I think these young people are doing a good job by choosing the G League, choosing to go to historically Black colleges, to understanding what their value and their worth is and taking advantage of it. So I'm happy about it.
I do think, and I agree with both you and Tim, but I do think this is really becoming the end of these guys are amateur athletes and we can't pay them anymore. Because, LA, California's already adopted, yeah, we're willing to pay our players in college. And I do think what's going to begin to happen is the NC2As is going to say, listen, we're going to either have to profit share or we're going to lose TV revenue. We're going to lose players coming here and schools are losing it, like you said, revenue, because a lot of these schools, like you said, their teams fund the entire academic situation as well as sports.
And research.
Right. And so, and these schools the athletes aren't donating back to the schools like that. And so I'm looking at this going, this may be the end of play for free happening in the next, and they should call it the O'Bannon rule, is what they should call it. Because he's the one that really started, Ed O'Bannon is the one who really started this, I don't know what, maybe 15 years ago, trying to get these guys paid. So I'm excited about it. I'm with you. I think it should have been done years ago. I think none of this stuff should have been done under the table. I think it should have been flat out, here's what we can offer you. Here's how much we can give you, And so that's what I'm looking at. Now, switching gears right quick, we only got a few minutes. tennis star Naomi Osaka. She is a #1 ranked women's tennis pro, has decided to forego, what is it, the French Open?
French Open, yes, sir.
Due to not wanting to do the press conferences because of all of the pressure that they put on her, excuse me, mentally, and has caused her afterwards to deal with depression. And she said, I can't be fighting and playing on the court and then also fight off the court, dealing with media. I'm going to forego the media part, the interviews, and then the French Open, I think, then turned around and released her, didn't they say, or fined her?
They fined her $15,000 for refusing to do the interview.
Said, well, for finding me, I ain't even gonna be in.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it says is you have a bunch of these players who are still dealing with, I may be a pro, I may be ranked wherever I'm ranked, but I'm still dealing with mental health issues that has nothing to do with my skills on the court. I don't need to be more damaged by you asking me questions that gives me anxiety about playing. And so I'm seeing this and I'm going, okay, we have to again start looking at mental health in professional sports. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're mentally healthy while you're doing it. And so I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, what's going to be the change here? Because the NBA had to do something when a bunch of their stars came out and said, I battled depression during the season. And so, what are you guys' thoughts on this? Go ahead, Tim, I'll let you go this one. And then Will, you can close it down.
Okay. Well, quickly, I agree with her stance. I thought that the French Open, as well as the rest of the other Grand Slams, they begin to weigh in too. Australian Open, U.S. Open, Wimbledon, and French Open are the 4, Grand Slam tournaments in tennis, both men and women. And after they threatened her with, hey, we're going to give you this fine. If you continue to refuse, we are also, going to leave on the option kicking you out of the tournament. She said, well, I'll do you one better. You ain't got to kick me out. I'm gone. Yo mama. And what it demonstrates, though, is that, what it demonstrates is where we are now. We're at a different place in time. People want to have the holistic health, spirit, soul, and body. You want to be able to bring your full self to where you are, whether you're a high-paid athlete, a star, a celebrity, a influencer, whatever. I'm still human first. You cannot remove humanity from sports. People are people first, and you ought to respect that. And I think with the support that she's gotten across the world from celebrities and non-celebrities alike, highlights the fact that mental health, trauma-informed care is a real deal. She talked about when she won her Grand Slam against Serena back in 2018, the US Open, how when she won, the crowd was booing. And it was at that point that she began to deal with depression and things like that, because it was a traumatic experience for her. Here I am at the pinnacle of my career, winning against this legend, my idol, and I did something great and I'm getting booed. That was a shock to the system for her, and she's been battling ever since. And then the media comes with some insensitive questions afterwards. It's like, hey, man, get out of my face. So some of the detractors are saying, well, hey, you signed a contract, that part of the media and press room and interviews, that's part of your contract. Well, guess what? Contracts can be renegotiated and they can be changed. They can be adjusted. And she gets paid the big bucks to play tennis, not talk to jokers that's trying to do some gotcha TV and interviews and things like that, because their ratings and stuff come from you being able to get, controversial kinds of statements. So I think her stand is great. I think it speaks more than just tennis or sports, but speaks to the fact that people and their mental health is a real issue that we have to be sensitive to and build into our interactions at whatever level. We want people to be sound in mind first, as well as in their physical body. One last piece, and I'll yield the floor to Will. I read somewhere with someone, he said that it was like Dear Tennis Association. Most people don't fake mental health to cover their wellness. They typically fake their wellness to cover their mental anguish. So get a clue here. Don't be tone deaf. This is a real issue. Deal with it with empathy, not heavy-handedness.
Well.
Yeah. I gotta say, I said this to my family. They probably tired of me saying it. And I've said this to my staff when I was president and CEO of the Workforce Board in Milwaukee County. The two sleeping giants in society, in this city, in counties, in the United States, is workforce and mental health. Those two issues are the sleeping giants. Those are the two issues that's going to hinder us as we move forward if we don't get serious about putting systems in place to address them and deal with them. It's just, and once again, it comes down to workforce being valued enough to share in the profit equitably with what they produce, and not a bunch of people in a room who know how to put a system together and bring these workers in and take advantage of them and pay them peanuts and think they're interchangeable or expendable when they're not. I think the power of the worker, the tennis player or the person working on an assembly line at Amazon, is finally getting to the point where those big companies, those individuals who have been able to make profit off of it in the past have now have to come to those individuals and talk in terms of sharing more of the revenue. And I think that's a good place for the United States.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, that definitely is a David and Goliath situation, with Naomi. So listen, we're going to close out, fellas. Once again, great show. Thanks for hanging with me again. We'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, Joy, 1340 AM, 98.7 FM.